Hey man, check it out. Did you know Jarek and myself co-host the Adventure Begins show? Well,
Wait, we do?
Yes, we do.
What?
Get with the times, man. It drops on social media, on certain social media platforms every Thursday, and on Roku just for me and for you through thewoodlandsonline.com.
Yep, we talk about stuff such as new upcoming comics, we talk about new board games, some new fun nerd stuff, and we like to throw in skits and jokes that we think are funny, you maybe not so much. So check us out every Thursday for that. So watch us on the Adventure Begins show.
That's right, man. So our first guest for this awesome quarantine con, he's a triple threat. Man, he's worked for the mighty Big Two, Marvel and DC, while serving as vice president of marketing and Action Lab Comics. He's created a smash hit series called Molly Danger. He just finished the sequel to his comic book series Black entitled White. And no doubt a future comic icon, our very first guest, Jamal Igle, my friend.
Hi, guys.
What's up, dude?
I'm good. Enjoying a Saturday.
Very cool, man. We want to thank you so much for hanging out with us today, dude.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Where are you at right now?
I'm in Brooklyn, actually.
Brooklyn.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Born. You were looking at one of the few born and raised New Yorkers.
Yep. America's wood.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, no, I'm born in New York City, raised in Brooklyn primarily, and that's where me and my family are now.
Very cool. Well, before we start off the interview, real quick to the viewers, if you have a question, I'm watching all of the feeds, so if you have a question and it's cool or good enough or whatever, we'll ask them all, and perhaps he'll answer it if he feels like it. So please interact, partake, and all that jazz. Jamal, you're a killer artist. I checked out your history, and
Sorry, I didn't hear a single word you just said.
Oh, man.
You completely cut out.
I just heard this roaring whatever, and I was like, well, I'll just go with it. He's got headphones on. I don't know where that came from, but that was cool.
I think that Green Hornet did.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying, I was checking out your history, man. You're an awesome artist, and you've had a pretty awesome career as well. Who were some of your early inspirations that made you think, hey, man, drawing, this is kind of what I want to do?
Ooh, wow. Okay. So I was interested in doing comics from probably like the age of 5. And the very first thing wasn't even a comic book. My grandfather took me to see the first Superman movie.
Nice.
And that just turned my little brain upside down, like just completely just changed everything. So once I started really getting into comics and seeing what made comics tick, it was guys like Jerry Ordway, it was guys like Ron Frenz on Amazing Spider-Man, John Romita Jr. I mean, this is like the stuff that I could get my hands on. And then when I was in like junior high school, there was a newsstand near my school that sold comics. So that's when I discovered like George Perez and Larry Stroman when he was doing Alien Legion, and Chris Warner, and just a bunch of different guys. And then I have what I call like my holy trinity.
Yeah.
Which is Dave Stevens, Steve Rude, and Brian Bolland.
Very cool.
Those are like the 3 guys like through high school that I like immediately gravitated towards the most. And Jerry Ordway was still in the mix, and then Garcia Lopez, and just a lot of the guys that I was attracted to as an artist all kind of fall into that naturalistic style of art. So those were like my biggest influences creatively.
Very cool. Man, those are some legends, my friend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just great guys. I mean, I've never been disappointed by a single one of them that I have met in real life. Just the sweetest, most self-effacing people. Just honestly, just good, genuine, like willing to help you out, willing to give advice, willing to talk you off the ledge occasionally.
I think it's really cool. Yeah, when you can meet your heroes and just so cool, down to earth, and just willing just to hang out, or just some pieces of advice, because there's a lot of people who are not like that.
Oh, no, absolutely. And some, like, I only got to meet Dave Stevens once before he passed away, and he was just humble. Like, I gushed over him. And he was just like, well, what about like Al Williamson and Mac Rayboy and all these guys? It's like, yeah, but you're one of my goats. You know what I'm saying? Like I fell in love with the Rocketeer, and I think the scarcity of it and just how much love and attention he put into everything that he put out, no matter how long it took between issues to appear. Like, it was just, I was always attracted to that. So.
I find it that he was so humbled and that he tried to pawn you off on someone else. It's like, listen, there's better. Better. And
no, he was very sweet. He really was.
At Bicken678, you just pretty much answered his question, because he asked, who were your influences as a young artist? So he did answer that. Jarek, I think there's another fan one, yeah?
Yeah, at Ice Rich $$ asks, what avenues as far as training or schooling did you take to get ready for what you're currently doing?
Okay, so I am a classically trained illustrator, as stupid as that sounds sometimes coming out of my mouth. But I went to the High School of Art and Design here in New York City, and but I'd been drawing, like I'd been going to like art programs and like gifted and talented programs, like all through like grade school all the way up through high school. So I went to art and design, and then I went to the School of Visual Arts. I left after 2 years, but between art and design and SVA, I also went to the Art Students League of New York. And I actually ended up becoming an instructor at the Art Students League. I did that for a couple of years, and then I created their comic art program, which is still going to this day.
When was that?
This was 2000. This was before my daughter was born. So I started in 2006, and then I left in 2008. So the comic program, was that something they came to you initially, or was that kind of your idea? No, they came to me. They knew that I was alumni of the school, and they asked me if it was something I'd be interested in doing. And yeah, so I jumped in. I taught comic art every Sunday for 2 years for 8 hours.
That is
wow.
Every Sunday for 2 years. And
that
then my wife.
Really cool.
It was a lot of fun. It was frustrating, because the way that the Art Students League works, it's a monthly enrollment, so you would always have to reset with new people coming in. So I tried to make the class as open as possible. And the way that I found worked the best was the first half of the class, the first 3.5 hours of the class was life drawing.
Okay.
So we had the life drawing portion, and then the second part, the afternoon, after we take an hour for lunch, and then the afternoon would be the comic portion. So that's when we would get into like the nitty gritty of storytelling and composition and everything else. But again, everybody had different levels, because we had kids. I had kids as young as 10 in this class, and then people going into their 70s.
Oh wow, that demographic is awesome.
Really cool.
Oh yeah, and then we'd have guys come in from the Kubert school and sit in for a while and pop in and out, and animators and stuff. So my friend Steve Walker, who was my assistant and then went off and started doing his own comics, he's the instructor of the class. He's actually been teaching class since I left in 2009. So he's going on his 11th year teaching class.
Wow. Right on.
So
wow.
Yeah. So do you think you've had an edge up compared to other artists who aren't located in the city? Trying to get in in terms of education. In
terms of education, no, not really, because to date myself, I graduated from high school in 1990, so there wasn't a lot in terms of comic art programs. At the time, it was my choices were SVA, the Kubert School, I think Cal Arts, which is just starting their comics program, even though they were still focusing on animation. So there weren't those schools. There weren't the amount of schools that there are. SCAD didn't exist. Their comics art program didn't exist back then. So a lot of what I know about comics, I either had to learn in school from the few people who did actually taught comics. With SVA, it was a completely different thing because you had at the time you had Carmine Infantino and Will Eisner as instructors there, and then Klaus Janson, who still teaches there, I think, and then now you've got Phil Jimenez was teaching there, and a bunch of Joey Cavalieri, who was an editor at DC, was teaching writing, and just so they had the SVA has the advantage of having members of the New York comics community. The same thing with the Kubert School, because you have like Amy Chu and Aletha Martinez teaching there now. So there's that, but it's not exclusive. It's the same thing as the industry. The industry is scattered all over the planet now. So there's pretty much, there are places, there are pockets that you can go where you can learn to do comics. You don't have to be in New York anymore.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, I think growing up, I as a kid, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and I think the only thing that we had was at Michael's, the craft store. I mean, like once a week. You learned some fundamentals, and it was fun and whatnot, but definitely nothing that you.
It's true, but it's just like anything. Most 90% of what you end up knowing is stuff that you learn on the job.
Oh, cool.
That makes
so that's I learned more. For example, I worked at Sony Animation for 4 months doing storyboards, and I learned more about doing storytelling from drawing on 2x2 Post-it notes, and not even doing fully rendered pages, just doing the rough bones of a storyboard so I can hand it off to a finisher to do the completed boards. But I learned so much about panel continuity in that 4 months. It was like boot camp, honestly. That I was getting paid for, and I thought I was a decent storyteller before I did that job, and then came out so much stronger because of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that kind of leads us into the next question. With the advances and the ease of this digital world that we're into, do you find yourself using computers and that type of technology more so than like the traditional pen and ink, or is tech like the way to go? Because I know a lot.
Well, for me, I'm still 50-50. 90% of what I do, if I'm not like coloring myself, like most of what I do is just on paper, and brush and pencil and everything, just because I like the tactile feel of it. You can't see it from this angle, but right in front of me is a 27-inch Cintiq. So I can work digitally, and I do color my own covers, and I do my own production work, and I have done digital inking. And more often than not, it comes down to how I'm feeling about what needs to be done for the job. For me, I like working on paper. For some guys, I know Peter Krause is all digital, and it's a speed thing for him,
right?
Because he's able to cut out a few steps that you wouldn't necessarily have to do when you're doing pages. But I know for myself as well, I work with an inker when I'm doing something like white, or if I'm doing the wrong earth. And I've been working with the same inker, Juan Castro, who lives in Tijuana, Mexico.
Yeah.
And I've been working with
That's
Juan
easy.
for 8 years. So I just do things on my end, scan it in, send it off to him. He does his magic, and it all gets sent to whoever's doing the coloring or the toning or the lettering or whatever.
Right.
So
I know and I only ask because there's a lot of artists who are just like, no, it's pen and ink, it's traditional, and some are digital all the way. And then you even have fans who are like, what, they did it on the computer? That's not real art. I'm like, come on, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't get that argument at all. It's just as real. You just don't have the tactile, end product. And
Right.
that's the only real difference. You're still spending as much time sitting over a tablet as you would be sitting over a drawing table.
Right.
Again, there may come a time where I'm going to have to make the leap to doing things digitally completely. And I'm hoping that time doesn't come anytime soon, because it doesn't really seem to interfere with how I'm doing my work. But I know that may become a necessity at some point.
Right.
But that's just the way it is. Technology marches forward. How things are done marches forward. When I first got into the business, do you know how they colored comics back in before the advent of Photoshop?
With the ink?
Basically, they would take a photocopy, they would color the photocopy, and they would have to hand there was a guide, the Dr. Martin's pH guide, and they would have to label every single color for the separators at the printers. So they would send these sheets, and then the printers would have to set up the color plates to the corresponding colors. Photoshop took all of that out of the process and sped up the entire process. When I first got into the business, FedEx was the only way that you could transmit pages. And sometimes it would, if you didn't live in New York back in the 60s and the 70s, that was the only way for most people, unless you were working so far ahead that you could send pages in, the mail. The only way that you could get stuff around quickly within a day of each other was to send things with FedEx. Now everything is digital.
Right.
And everything that gets sent around, for production is done digitally. So, things progress. The industry, how things are produced are going to keep progressing. That's just the way it is.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's just as real. There's no difference. People are still, spending hours and days and months. I just finished 120 pages over the course of a year.
Dude, I'm fine. Art is art to me. I think art. I'm not one of those people who hate that artists are doing things digitally, anything like that. I think a lot of people just like to have something to be angry about, and I figure if you're angry about if it's digital or hand drawn, then I guess they're doing something okay. They could be angry about other things, I guess.
I don't know. That was starting to sound like a segue.
No, not at all. No. Actually, my segue was going to be your Sony stuff. But, no way, man. I just want to drop that right there. Just be like,
okay.
Be angry about little things.
I was just gonna be like, all right, well, if there's a whooping they were wanting, I'll accommodate them.
I'll FedEx myself to New York when we get to fight. All right, so we got. Let's see. Once you decided that you were going to follow this career path, usually there's a lot of legwork and all that jazz, but some people are fortunate to have like an in or their foot in the door somewhere. Was that the case with you, or did you just hustle like most people?
It wasn't.
No, it was. There was a lot of hustling. I mean, my in initially was the fact that I did an internship at DC when I was in high school. That was my in. That made people remember who I was. But even then, my first job in the industry was for this company called Majestic Entertainment. You've never heard of them, probably.
No.
This was at the height of the boom, the speculative boom, when they were doing the collectible card comics. So Defiant was doing one, and Majestic was doing another. And that was going to be their thing, was they were doing these collectible card comics. So there was a company based out of Cincinnati, and I was working on a book called Flashpoint. Phil Hester was working on a book called Stat. Dan Lawless was working on a book called Legacy, and then there was another book called Heroes Like Us. And it was all the whole universe was all it was like a, X-Men meets Wild Cards, sort of thing, where, there was this hero who was dying and decided to have this lottery, and he would disperse his power amongst the lottery winners. So that's how people got superpowers. And like one of the villains was like this Hulk kind of character with like these protruding spikes coming out of their body, called Punch, Hurt, Kill, Kill. So that was but the company filed Chapter 11, embezzled all the money. My book never saw print.
Oh.
Yeah. But I was able to take those pages and I sent them around to a bunch of editors that I knew. And then Kevin Dooley, who was the editor on Green Lantern at the time, got me to do 8 pages of an issue of Green Lantern, and that was like my first published work. Then the second thing that I did was a fill-in issue of Static for Milestone, and then I wouldn't get any comics work for like a year and a half, even though I was hustled. I was like trying for like a year and a half, and at the meantime I was working at Radio Shack, and then I was in this bad relationship, But what had happened was I had gone to a convention in Philadelphia, and a buddy of mine, Rob Stull, who's an inker, introduced me to Billy Tucci. So I went to work for Billy Tucci when he was doing She back in the 90s. So that was like my in back into the industry. So everything else I have really done in the industry has really been from me like just hustling and trying to get work and trying to get better. And I had like a 6-month period in like 1999 before I went to Sony, before I moved out to Los Angeles to work at Sony. And I had like 6 months where all I was doing was samples and sending them in. I was doing I was doing independent work. I was working with Alex Simmons on his series Blackjack, and I was doing some inking, and I was working Fred Van Lente and Steve Ellis and I were co-owners of a comic studio called Unstoppable Productions, and we were doing Classics Illustrated for Scholastic and a couple of other things. We came up with a role-playing game called Super Powers with like 7 other people, and we were selling those for a while, and right up until I would say about 99, 2000, when I went to Sony. I was at Sony for a couple of months, and then Marvel offered me New Warriors, and then I've been doing comics ever since, just exclusively doing comics since then.
Oh wow,
Nice.
That was really, really cool. I think we have a fan question.
Yeah, this comes from at Michael J. Not Fox. A lot of artists have their holy grail character they would love to write or draw. Do you have one?
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough. No, because I used to say Superman, and then I finally got to work on Superman.
Yeah.
The War of Superman, is that the one you did?
No, I did Wars of the Superman. I did right before they did the New 52. I did Superman 713 and 714, the last two issues before the New 52. Yeah. And then I got to draw Superman and Supergirl. So whenever he would pop up in Supergirl, so that used to be the character that I said, well, all right, now, that was my goal character, and I finally got, I don't know if I really have a character like that anymore. I have stuff that I would love to do. Mm-hmm. Like, I've got an idea for a Captain America story. I've got an idea for an Incredible Hulk story. I've got an idea for a Punisher story that Marvel would never let me do in a million years. One of the things that I love to do every once in a while is I muse things. I had this dream a couple of weeks ago about a Green Lantern story, but it was Green Lantern. It was like a Japanese Green Lantern in the vein of Kamen Rider.
Oh, dude, that is awesome.
So actually, I got a sketch. I've got the sketch over here. It doesn't really have the punch. It's you have to imagine that like all the bits are green and white.
Right.
That's you can't really see it. Oh my god!
Oh,
you can't really see it.
Blur off. Oh, there it is.
Blurry. There we go.
Hey,
all right. That is rocking.
Yeah.
Like
That's
killer, man.
Yeah. So I love doing little things like that, but I'm a writer. I like to come up with ideas. The thing is I've got right now. I'm doing stuff that I love, and I'm creating and co-creating stuff of my own. So I'm not really that as concerned with trying to do stuff for like a Marvel or a DC. Like my whole ever since I left, because I was exclusive at DC until 2012, and ever since I left, I had one goal, which was to have fun.
Yeah.
Was to do stuff that seemed weird or fun or just unusual, like things that you would not imagine. Like when IDW came to me and asked me if I wanted to do Kiss.
I was about to ask you about Kiss.
Yeah.
Favorite rock and roll.
Yeah, and it's just like Chris Ryall sends me an email, and he's just like, listen, we've got this Kiss series that we're going to do, but it's Kiss set to 1930, so I need you to draw a picture of the boys as the Untouchables.
Oh,
and I'm just like, okay. So I did the sketch. They sent it to Gene and Paul. Gene and Paul gave me the okay, and I did the first 2 issues of that series, and like the first 4 covers.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I did the covers for the 2 issues that I did, and then I did the covers for the Kiss Girls series. So that was, again, that was like, that was fun. I did a thing with Larry Hama for the Smithsonian, where it's basically a modernized riff on Huey, Louie, and Dewey. So I'm like poring over Carl Barks' artwork, like really just trying to get like that Disney look, which is not easy at all.
I would imagine it would be.
It's not easy. It's very specific. Like, I didn't want to deviate at all, and I was really happy with the way that it came out. And it's the same reason why I did Black, which was Kwanzaa and Tim came over to my place, and Kwanzaa just showed me he had his pitch. Like, the pitch was just basically an image of Kareem X, the lead character, in the hoodie, and all it said is, "What if only black people had superpowers?" I'm just like, I'm in.
Right.
Just let me at it. And the same thing with the Wrong Earth. Tom Pyre pitched me to Wrong Earth, and I immediately wanted to do it because it just seemed like fun and a great opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I really Wrong Earth. I really, really dig. Before I get to that, I discovered you through the Supergirl series that you did. I guess your run with Supergirl, which I thought was really cool. And then your Kiss. Obviously, I got all the Kiss comics. I was like, dude, I gotta get this guy. I mean, he does great work, but he did some Kiss stuff. Yeah. So thank you very much for that stuff. I mean,
no problem. It was a blast. It was fun. Kiss is one of my favorite bands, so I got no problem saying that at all. Gene, I got to meet Gene in San Diego. We did a signing together. It was surreal
Yeah.
But but just like it was great. Like he was a gentleman to everybody and just like super friendly and made me laugh. Just
Yeah, I've had the chance of meeting some of the guys, Gene, a couple of times, and he is a really nice guy. He really is. He does he has that Gene Simmons kind of everybody talks about. He has that, but he's a really cool, nice guy.
No, it was one of the things that I took away from that experience was, one, I could never imagine being a celebrity on that level and having like people like online like yelling at him, can you do this song at your next show? Can you do this? Can you sign? Like people were bringing merch, and he was very cool. He's like, I'm only signing the books here. I can't sign anything else.
Right.
Here and it was really weird because that was the same year because IDW did their Kiss series and Archie did their Kiss series, and the booths were right next to each other on the show floor. So as soon as Gene finished signing at the IDW booth and went over to the Archie booth, the entire crowd went.
Oh, that's killer, man. And then all the other booths are just crickets. It was. I've had a few experiences like that with like conventions and big crowds and everything, but just not that level. The only time recently that had that like a similar experience is when I was doing the marketing at Action Lab, and Action Lab has the Miraculous series. And when they first had it, like when they first started releasing books, we did a signing in San Diego. And I had to arrange the booth signing. So we had all the voice actors and the show's creator there, and just this massive line that wrapped from our booth, like went all the way down to the end of the hall and was starting to wrap around, and like just trying to control that melee and like people trying to sneak in, and it's a very interesting phenomenon. It really is when you're in the middle of that experience. I can only imagine. I've been asked to judge some costume or cosplay contests or mediate some panels at some comic book conventions, and when you have these, especially when it comes to the celebrities, I kind of feel bad for some of them, where you've got this long line for days for one celebrity, and then they're sandwiched in between, these two not very well known celebrities or liked or whatever. They're just, so I kind of feel bad when I see that, almost to the point where I want to go buy something from them. Just to make
Well, you know what? I've been on both ends of that, so it's appreciated. I've been the guy with the long line, and I've been the guy who who was getting crickets because there was a giant line next to me. So,
there's an interesting question, I think, from Happy Jared.
Yeah, at Happy Eyes 2001 asks, states, when I'm drawing, I have to have some light music playing and a cup of hot tea at the ready. Is there something similar that you do?
Ooh, just what, to like relax, or?
Yeah, like it seems like just to relax. Like whenever I paint miniatures and stuff like that. So for when I do it, I have light music playing, and I probably have like a coffee with me when I do that. Something that way, I'm there, I'm in the mood, and I'm ready to go. Do you have something kind of similar?
Jam out to the corpse.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I actually wrestling.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wrestling's my thing. It's kind of always been there. Like I don't really listen to music. Like I'll listen to music sometimes, but like when I'm working, like I'm usually listening to like podcasts, or I'm listening to like talk shows on the radio, that sort of thing. But like my like zone out, like relax thing is to just watch like AEW or WWE or Ring of Honor, or or New Japan when I can find it, and just watch promos and old matches or current matches, or just because for me, like it's so similar to what I do for a living, but there's that disconnect of it being live action, and just like I could I can see the swerves and the heel turns, and it's like I can appreciate it on that level. And that's like the stuff that I use to kind of like chill my brain. Like I can't watch a movie or like a television show because then I start thinking too much about logic. Yeah. There's no logic in wrestling. So, they say there's logic, but there's no logic in wrestling. If there was logic in wrestling, how could a guy who was a heel 2 months ago turn into a baby face and suddenly forget every heel tactic that he used on baby face, who's now a heel, who's now using those same tactics on him? So there's no logic.
So you're more of a fan of like the action of it, or you're more of the like I said, the quick narrative that comes out when it comes to wrestling?
It's a combination of both, actually. Like I love seeing like how matches are put together. Like I love I was watching AEW Dynamite before I got on the call with you guys, and they had Best Friends with Orange Cassidy versus Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc with Penelope Ford, and they basically were like having a mini tables, ladders, and chairs match, and it's not something that you would normally see on a network show. They would usually save something like that for the pay-per-view, but because things are the way that they are, with the pandemic and everything, like you got to do what you got to do to put butts in the seat, even if those butts are glued in my wife's ottoman. So, but I've always had an appreciation for the spectacle of. It's like I love elaborate entrances. I love listening to heel managers just spout on about how their guy is the greatest and you can't take him. The impassioned speech from the baby face. I just need the crowd to be with me. If you're with me, I can power through this adversity.
That's why you like this so much. We have another question. Elite in Pop asks, where did the idea of Molly Danger come from? This is from you did a Kickstarter for this back in 2012?
Yes.
And while researching more of what you do to get ready for this interview, I came across the first Kickstarter video you did. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, man, you were so passionate about this character. I wanted to pledge more monies, even though you raised all of it. So, where did the idea of Molly Danger come from?
Well, Molly started out actually as a potential animation pitch. And it was a buddy of mine and I were driving back from a show, and we were just kind of going back and forth. This was about 2003. And we were just kind of going back and forth about, if we were going to do a cartoon, what would we do? How would we do it? And we wanted to do something woman-centric. And the name came first. And that was sort of like the genesis. And we started developing it, decided to do it as a comic, but just couldn't get it together. I kept getting busier and busier. He couldn't devote as much time to it, and it sat on the shelf until about 2010. I had been approached by a publisher about pitching an YA graphic novel, and I was kind of beating my head about what I could pitch. And then, I'd always kind of had Molly there and said, okay, let me see if this is something that I could do. And the original version of Molly Danger was much more complex. It was much more of like an Amethyst Princess of Gem World sort of thing, where she was jumping back and forth between realities, and you didn't know which reality was the real reality, if she was just a normal little girl imagining that she's a superhero, or she's just a superhero who wants to be a normal little girl. And I was just like, that's way too complicated. That's too much. So I just pared it down to a very simple idea. She's Molly Danger. She's always been Molly Danger, and that's the only thing that she knows about herself. And that's how I just started to build the rest of the storyline around her. And that really was where Molly came from. And then the other thing that I found that really influenced, the two things that really influenced what I was doing with Molly was having been on Supergirl for as long as I was, and really enjoying what I was doing with Supergirl, but noticing at the time especially that there weren't any young female superhero characters that weren't attached to another hero, that weren't that wasn't like a legacy character of some sort. So I wanted to create something different, and then around 2008, again, kind of all sort of coming together. My daughter was born. And I have nieces who are now in their 20s, but they were teenagers at the time, and I wanted to do something for all of them. I wanted to create a character who was independent and strong, but layered and complex. And something that wasn't sexualized, and something that someone who had a sense of self and a sense of urgency about her mission, and but having that tragic element for Molly of her not knowing who she is and being separated from the public purposely by Dart, and not having any friends. And really, the for me, the most heartbreaking part of Molly's story is the fact that she has watched people around her grow old and die for 20 years, and she's unchanged. She hasn't matured. She's become smarter, and she's become more capable and more of a seasoned veteran as a hero, but she's still essentially a 10-year-old girl, mentally and emotionally. So how do you deal with all of that? How do you reconcile that as a character? So as I go forward, and I am still working on the second book. It's taken way longer than I ever intended it to do. But unfortunately, that's just life gets in the way. And I'm
Well, I think it's a great concept for sure.
Penciling and inking pages. Pencils are pages. Pages have been inked. Pages are being scripted. I'm trying. Molly means a lot to me. And,
I can tell.
Yeah, you can tell. Yeah, hell, I want to money down the Kickstarter right now after hearing you talk about it for just this short bit. I mean, man. Wow.
I think it's a great concept. It's original. It's I'm looking forward to the second book, and you heard it here. I mean, we're gonna get it. That's for sure. And even though things just got kind of really heavy, but it's all worth it, man. Let's go to camp. Dude, one of my favorite books of yours, my friend, is The Wrong Earth. I love this book. It had me. As soon as I opened up, it is the first page from book one. After the first dialogue box, I was hooked. Because if it doesn't say Batman 66, then I'm obviously an idiot.
It is the wrong so for those people who don't know, The Wrong Earth is published by Ahoy Comics. Now, I didn't mean to wear the swag; it just sort of worked out that way this morning. So I'm still wearing the hat, and I got the T-shirt, so I am repping Ahoy. But The Wrong Earth. So the basic concept of The Wrong Earth is you have the same hero two different versions on two different Earths. You have Dragonfly Man, who is very much in that sort of Adam West sort of Batman '66 vein, and then you have, as I like to refer to him, the goddamn Dragonfly, who is his darker, much more brooding, occasionally drunken counterpart, and they end up on each other's Earths through a series of magic mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
So and they have to deal with each other's villains. So the villain of the series is a character called Number One, who is the ultimate narcissist. So the Number One on Earth Alpha, which is the campy Earth, is very much in a sort of a cross between Timothy Leary, Charles Nelson Riley, and then on Earth Omega, he's Tim Roth, he's Gary Oldman, he's very much more sinister. I've kind of modeled him up a little bit off of Alan Cumming in Cabaret, just slithery, and so in the Dragonfly's pursuit of Number One, Dragonfly Man has to deal with villains like Killer Cactus, who's half man, half cactus.
So good.
This is awesome.
And then Dragonfly has to battle villains like Granny Oakley and a Chef Escargot.
Dude, we're buying the shop, man. Like, we're gonna get it. I've already got mine on order.
So it's been awesome. So we're getting ready to start working on season 2. Season 1 is in trade. They did a French edition as well, so that's it's getting international, baby. It's getting all over the place.
Awesome. I could see it being picked up. Like, I would totally watch something like that. It's just cool enough and just unique enough, man. I could see it like on a Hulu or Netflix or something like that.
Oh yeah, I would love to see that. I think Sci-Fi did like a fan casting when the first couple of issues came out a couple of years ago, and they were just like, we got to get Bill Hader to do this. Like Bill Hader. I was imagining John Hamm more than Bill Hader, but as soon as they said Bill Hader, was like,
oh, dude, hands
down.
Yeah,
I can definitely see that.
Nice.
That's perfect. That's brilliant. You got another Kickstarter that happened in 2016, right? And Jarek,
yeah, 2016 Black.
Yes, so Black.
It's been compared to Marvel's Uncanny X-Men in terms of reviews. Do you mind elaborating between the why that might be?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Black is set in a world where only Black people get superpowers, and it's a subset of Black people. It's not all Black people. But it's been a secret since the days of chattel slavery, basically. And one family has been in control of the secret. The Mann family has been in control of the secret the entire time. So the first book basically deals with this young man named Kareem Jenkins, who is shot by the police on his way home from playing basketball with his buddies in a case of mistaken identity, wakes up completely healed in the back of an ambulance and breaks out, and then he's found by Juncture, who's the leader of this team called the Project. And basically the Project has been, in a similar fashion to, Charles Xavier, the Project has been gathering these empowered Black people. But as you go through, the world, you start to discover that, there are cyborgs and other teams of African Americans who work for the government who are trying to keep this information out of the public. So that's the first series. So we did the first 6 issues was collected through Black Mass Studios. That's been out for a couple of years. I just finished the sequel, which we did a preview last year for New York Comic Con, and it picked the preview, the White, which is the name of the next series, in the same universe. It's because you have Black, which is the main book, and then they did 3 miniseries. Also, closeted into 3 miniseries. One that Tim Smith drew, which is called Widows and Orphans, which deals with slave trade, with empowered blacks being kidnapped and being used for slavery, and then America's Sweetheart, which is about a character named Ellie, who is the most powerful superhero in that universe. She also happens to be a 16-year-old black girl who is raised by white parents in the middle of Nebraska. So, and her superhero name is Good Girl. Like, she's literally like the closest equivalent to Supergirl, or like the Golden Age Supergirl that you can get in this universe. And then third series, which focuses on one of the members of King Squad from the project, Indigo, and like her past. So White picks up 3 years after the events of Black, where Theodore Mann, who is the main villain of Black, is now the president of the United States.
All right.
So,
yeah, that's almost. Dude, that would suck. I have no words. When is White scheduled to hit the stands?
I would assume that's probably going to come out sometime in the fall. I think. Like, I literally finished the pencils for issue 6 last Thursday. So. And the first issue is completely lettered and toned and everything, so they're going to be working on everything else. So I would imagine probably sometime in the fall, solicited and coming out. So yeah. So, and then in the meantime, Black got optioned for a movie. And
ooh, nice, sir.
So it's currently at Sony, and it's Jeff Rabinoff's company, Studio 8, optioned it a couple of years ago. So it has a producer. They're working on the script. As far as I know. So that's outside of my my grade. So.
So what he's telling us is, the next time you want me to do an interview, you gotta call my people.
That's what this is.
my people is a 12-year-old girl sitting on my couch right now. That's my people.
Well, man, just a couple of more things. I wanted to bring up something very cool. I think is very cool. Just for the people who are watching who don't know, the Inkpot Award is an honor bestowed annually since 1974 by the Comic-Con International. It's given out to professionals of comic books and comic strips, sci-fi, pop culture at the San Diego Comic-Con. So we've got like Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, Joe Quesada, Jim Lee, and in 2011, the soon-to-be legendary Jamal Igle. Man, how was that? How did that come about? And is it something you're like, whatever, or is it something like really big for you?
Okay. They sneak it up. They invite you to the convention. They wait until you're doing a panel, and then somebody comes up to you and says, "Congratulations, you got the Inkpot." And I'm just like, "What?"
That is insane.
That's awesome.
I didn't know beforehand at all.
I did not know at all. I had no idea. Not a clue. My friend Keith Dallas was moderating my panel. He knew, but didn't say anything.
No, really?
Yeah. Like, if you can find any,
exploded in front of everyone.
If you can find any photos of me, because there are photos of me from that year when they presented the award to me, like, the expression on my face is just like, like I can't, like, I knew of the Inkpot, but like, this is Steven Spielberg got this award. Hayao Miyazaki has an Inkpot award. Like, you're just like, no, this doesn't compute. Apparently the only mistake that I made was that you're supposed to bring your Inkpot with you and display it on your table after you get it, and I didn't know that. So I took it back to my hotel room and put it in the safe. It's like, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, no, it was a complete surprise. It was, I, you know, I don't do this for reward. I don't do this. I mean, I do this to make a living, but I don't do. I didn't get into the comics to become a millionaire. That was, never even, and to this day, not even, what motivates me. I've always been motivated by the work. I've always been motivated by being creative more than anything else. So, awards and stuff. Awards are nice. You know, I don't know if I'll ever be nominated for like an Eisner or anything, but if it comes, I will happily accept it. But to get something like this,
Yeah.
to be recognized like this, just it blows you away. It's really it's humbling. It really is. You just I still like I have it in my brake front, like, and I look at it every once in a while and it's like, dude, like.
I mean, to be honest, like, I was going through people who sending out messages, hey, we're doing this con, and would you be interested? And I sent one out to you, and I was like, there's no way in hell. I was like, he's got all these. He's an Inkpot winner, and I was like, there's no way. And you're like, hey, dude, what's up? And I was like, oh, very cool.
That's the thing, man. I'm a dude. Like, I hang out with my family. I walk my dog. That's my I draw I write and draw comic books. That's my thing. I don't have any. My ambitions are small. Lead a good life, stay healthy. Be a good husband, be a good father. Be a good dog dad. And draw and do comics. That's.
I mean, you definitely deserve that award for sure. I've only got we've only got like two more questions for you.
Sure.
We have a fan question. Do you have that? Is it Burns? At Burns and Smithers Bowling Club.
Awesome.
I like that handle.
Yeah, I like it too. It's really cool. What comics or trades are you reading these days, if any?
Ooh, okay. So I went and I dug I have a box of trades that I'm slowly working my way through, and a bunch of hardcovers. So the two that I'm reading right now is Legion Lost by Adnan and Lanning and Olivier Coipel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the hardcover that DC put out. I think it's like 2010, 2011. And Infinity Incorporated, the Generation Saga.
Oh, very cool.
So
Yeah,
those
that's
are
awesome.
the two that I'm reading right now. I'd never actually read Legion Lost before, so I was surprised that I still had it because I don't have that much room. So occasionally I have to do like these purges of comics. But so that's, and then I still have like an entire box of trades that I'm going through, and I've got like a Hulk omnibus that I still haven't opened yet. My house is full. We're readers.
Yeah.
Like, there are books and comics all over the place. My local store just started opening up again to doing curbside. So when they start getting regular books, I will be patronizing them again. And then I've been reading some stuff on digital on Comixology as well. So.
Oh, very cool, man.
Nice.
Very cool. So for anybody listening, that's what he's reading, so make sure you pick it up. We've got one last question for you, my friend. Jarek and I co-host, like we said, the Adventure Begins show every week on Roku. We're going to ask a question, and depending on your answer, on a future show, we may indulge ourselves in it, and you'll find out what that question is. It'll make sense in just 2 seconds.
Okay.
So if you were to walk into a deli, right, and you're to walk in and you see your name written right up on the board, what would be on that sandwich?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Very serious question.
That is a very serious question. I would have to say tuna salad with cranberry, Swiss cheese, lettuce, tomato, little onion, salt, vinegar, and a couple pickles.
Oh, nice. Pickles on the side.
Yeah, pickles on the side.
Now, if and I think it's a great sandwich, and like I said, in a future episode, we will try the Jamal Igle sandwich on the show. As a suggestion, I think just because of the ink pot, should we do a little like a splash of balsamic vinegar on the bread on the very top to get that ink spot?
Would not hurt at all. Very tasty.
Write that down.
Very tasty.
Well, Jamal,
what kind of bread?
Oh yeah.
That's very important.
I would probably go with a ciabatta.
Okay.
I would definitely go with a ciabatta. So don't splash it on top. Splash the balsamic inside, and then do smash cut, slice in the middle, and you're good to go.
Awesome. Well, I do have it all written down right here, so we will be having the Jamal.
All right.
And we'll tag you in the episode.
Sounds good.
Cool, man. Jamal, appreciate it, man. You're very cool. You're hella talented, and I appreciate talking, man. I had a lot of fun.
Oh, this was a great interview.
Chaz, Jarek, thank you for having me, brothers.
Sure, man. And we will see all of you cats at 5:30 with our interview of with Rocket Queen. But right now, we're going to show Counter Space Episode 5. Have you ever had one of those days? So, cool, man. Stay tuned.
Do you guys have any D&D stuff? I hate busy days.
Kids, you need help with anything? Hey, kid. Hey, kids, you need help with anything? Kid. Yo! Hey, where are your parents? Shouldn't you be at school or something?
I got a PhD in kicking your butt. How's that for schooling? Now send me some smokes.
Hey, Chaz?
Yeah?
Did you just sell that kid some cigarettes?
No. I don't. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Hey, Chaz?
Yeah?
We don't sell cigarettes.
Hey, Jarek.
Yeah?
We're closed.
Huh.
Amateurs.
We hope you guys enjoyed this week's Counter Space. We also do not condone selling cigarettes to minors.
That's right.
Don't smoke.
That's right, kids. Don't smoke. Don't smoke. Cigarettes are bad. They're gross.